Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down Bellator 286. So I'll be quick. Normally I tend to go like 30, 40 minutes. I'm going to try to do a shorter episode today. Just, I don't think a lot of these fights need a lot of time to be broken down. And B, I've got a ton of stuff to do. I'm sure you guys all have a ton of stuff to do. We've got a bunch of other regional fights this weekend, particularly tomorrow, and then Saturday as well for the Bellator fights. I do have a bunch of plays already up. Make sure you're following me at Couch Warrior Pod. I post my picks as I make them. And my Bet MMA page has everything as well. I'll go over the regional bets at the end of this show for anybody who still wants them. And let's get right into this. So for this first fight, we've got Weber Almeida versus Ryan Lilley. Almeida is 6-1-0. He's 34 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. And I've got him training out of, I know he trains with Team Machida, and I've got Black House over here as well. And then on the other side, we've got Ryan Lilley. He's 11-8-0. He's 32 years old, so he's 2 years younger. He's 5'6", so he's 1 inch shorter. And he's got a 68-inch reach, so he's got a 2-inch reach disadvantage. He is training out of Bas Rutten's Elite MMA, as far as I could tell. And for me, this one's pretty basic. I mean, look, the odds already tell the story, right? Clearly, Bellator has been trying to push Almeida. He's one of these guys who they've constantly been pushing. He's always a heavy favorite because they give him favorable matchups. He's minus 300 right now. Come back on Lilley's plus 250. And I think it's a fair price tag, to be honest. Ryan Lilley doesn't necessarily do anything that's going to be a danger to Almeida. If you look at Almeida, the one loss he has, right, in Bellator, I believe the fellow's name was, I have it down somewhere. Johnny Soto, yeah. So Almeida had that one loss, and how did Soto beat him? He out-grappled him. He used his wrestling. Can Ryan Lilley wrestle like that? No, he hasn't really shown that. He does have 4 submission wins, but he's not showing dominant grappling. And he's also really hittable. His last knockout loss was in 2021. It was to a 40-year-old man. Granted, the man's a UFC vet, but he's had 4 fights in the UFC, lost 3 or 4 of them. So take that as you may. And he's just very hittable, like I mentioned. His own striking is very basic. And Weber Almeida, he's low output. He's got that karate style. So he doesn't do a lot of things that I love. I don't like the kicking games. I don't like the low output with the hands. But he does kick really well. He does have good hands. His 1-2 is really good. When he lets go, the combinations are there. And he mixes to the body nicely too. Because Lilley can't wrestle, I think that he's going to lose this fight on the feet. I think he's probably going to get knocked out. I ended up playing Weber Almeida by knockout for a half unit. I'm pulling up the odds for you guys right now. And I like it because I have 3 rounds for Weber Almeida to find his target, knock this guy out. And I don't really have to worry about Ryan Lilley out wrestling him. So I do like Weber Almeida by knockout. I got that for a half unit at, pulling it up, plus 130. I think that's a fair price tag. It's not the juiciest thing ever, but what can you do? I mean, it makes sense, right? It makes sense that Ryan Lilley could get knocked out here. I think that's what he's set up for, 3 knockout losses. So we'll get right into the next fight. The pick is Almeida by knockout, and we're going to move on. So for this next one, we've got Bobby Seronio III versus Miguel Peimbert. Seronio is 2-0 undefeated as a pro. He's 24 years old, 5'7", and I do have him training out of Team Seronio. I imagine it's probably his father's camp. On the other side, we've got, we're going to call him Miguel. He's 1-1-0. I don't have any information for him in terms of age and whatnot. I was able to get that he's 2 inches taller, but that's all I've got. And again, this is pretty straightforward, pretty clear setup fight for Seronio. There's a reason he's minus 600. Peimbert, he's actually a pretty good striker. Like, he's got a decent jab, decent step-in hook. I like his knees in the clinch. 1 knockout win himself, but he's very hittable. He has decent offensive wrestling ability, but his takedown defense just looks really bad. He has a hard time getting back up, and the lack of defensive wrestling is how he lost his last fight. So I think it's going to be a repeat. Seronio is a really good grappler. He has really good wrestling. He's got a good double leg, good timing. And his striking is good. It's solid, and it's enough for him to be able to close the distance. So I expect Seronio to take Peimbert down, either control him for 3 rounds or find a finish at some point. I am not going to parlay Seronio or anything like that, just because I do think if somehow we get stuck on the feet, Miguel could maybe be live, but I've got no interest. I think Seronio runs through him, and we're going to move on to the next fight. All right, so for this next one, we've got Sumiko Inaba versus Nadine Mandiau. Inaba is 4-0, undefeated as a pro. She's 31 years old, 5'4", with a 64-inch reach. And I have her training out of I have her training out of Steel MMA with Angela Hill, but normally she's in Hawaii. I'm not positive what she did for this camp. On the other side, Mandiau, she's 2-5-0, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So she's 3 inches taller, and she's got a 6-inch reach advantage. And I do have her training out of San Diego Combat Academy. Someone's ringing on my doorbell right now. Can't imagine who it is. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to go answer the door. 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Jesus. Just not what I needed to deal with right now. All right. So back to this fight. I do apologize about that. Yeah, I'm going to be betting Mandiau here. I'm going to be taking the dog shot. You look at Sumiko Inaba, where she's finding most of her success. It's on the feet. She's got a really nice jab, nice straight strikes, good combinations. The output is there, good kicks. Everything looks good. 3 knockout wins. At this weight class, it's super impressive. Only 1 submission win, 0 sub losses. The offensive grappling is all right. I think Mandiau is low-key live. Just because Sumiko, she's not a crazy grappler, right? So she's not going to be just grapple fucking Nadine. And if we're on the feet, how can I not think that the person who is 3 inches taller has I believe, 6-inch reach advantage and is 1 year younger, how is she not live? I wrote in my notes, I thought it was pretty funny. Mandiau kind of seems like a Walmart Macy Chiasson to me. Looks just like her. Very similar in stature, very similar fighting styles. So yeah, I mean, look, technique for technique. Obviously, it's Inaba who's got the advantage in terms of size. It's clearly Mandiau. I just think that size can make a big difference. If you've watched my shows before, I believe in size bullying. I think it's a very legitimate thing. So right now, the line has been climbing and climbing. Everybody likes Sumiko. Everybody's parlaying her. She's currently sitting at -1,000. Comeback on Mandiau is +650. I'm going to play that for a quarter unit, whatever it ends up at. I'm going to wait until the day of because I know people are going to be parlaying Inaba. People just parlay the heavy favorites on Bellator without looking. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to sprinkle Nadine. While I do think Inaba should win this, she's set up to win this. I think Nadine is live. We do see spoilers constantly in Bellator, and I think this might be a spoiler. So I am going to sprinkle Nadine Mandiau here. I think she's live. I think her striking is good enough to hang here. And with that size difference, I think she can pull this off. So the pick is going to be Nadine Mandiau for an underdog upset. And we're going to move on to the next fight. We've got Lance Gibson Jr. versus Dominic Clark. Gibson Jr. is 6-0, undefeated as a pro. He's 27 years old, 5'10" with a 72.5-inch reach. And he trains with his father over at Gibson MMA. On the other side, you've got Dominic Clark, 15, 12-0, 37 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. And I have him training out of PKG. So this one's interesting, right? Because you've got, on the side of Clark, you've got a 37-year-old. He is a BJJ brown belt, and his grappling is actually pretty interesting. He's a state champ from high school. That must have been ages ago, considering he's 37, but, it's good. He has shown a decent single leg, some decent top control. The takedown defense isn't great, but he can reverse. His own offensive striking is all right. His hands are just okay. I like the jab and the calf kicks. He's got 3 knockout wins, but this is where it gets important. He's got 8 knockout losses. He holds a high guard, but everything still seems to be getting through. People are landing on him. And just that number, 8 knockout losses, that stands out to me because Gibson hits hard. He hits crisp. He's got really nice striking. The output's a little low, but when he's using it, it looks so good. Like, he's a much better striker here without a doubt. And I think he might be the better offensive wrestler right now too. So because I think Gibson has him covered, I've got to think that Gibson wins this fight. I do think if we're stuck on the feet, that all 3 rounds, like if it goes the distance, I do think Clark could be live. But Clark's also, after the first 3 minutes, like he's exhausted. He's not the same fighter, whereas Gibson does show good cardio. So yeah, I think that Gibson wins this fight. And I actually played him by knockout as well. I got that knockout prop. I'm going to pull it up. I got that knockout prop at plus 165 for a half unit. And I think that's a fair price tag. I really do. I think that he's kind of getting set up here as usual. And they're giving him an opponent with 8 knockout losses and bad striking defense. So I do think Gibson pulls it off. I think Gibson pulls it off with the knockout. And we're going to move on to the next fight. So now for the most part, we're out of that setup zone where it's these lower level Bellator prospects who they set up with easy matchups, right? Now we've got matchup after matchup after matchup of actually really good, close, even fights, in my opinion. So for this first one, we've got JJ Wilson versus Vladimir Tokov. Wilson's 8-1-0, 25 years old. He's 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. And I've got him training out of Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. On the other side, you've got Vladimir Tokov. He is, don't have an age, but I believe he's 24 years old. He's 5'10", so he's 1 inch shorter. He's got a 73-inch reach. He's given up 1 inch in reach. And yeah, I think this one is a super close fight. And I've been going back and forth on it, back and forth. JJ Wilson, we last saw him a few months ago against Khadzhimurat. And you know, that fight kind of went how we all expected, right? I believe he was an underdog going into that fight. Plus 120 is what it's showing, so that's not even that bad. But he got out-wrestled. He lost the decision. On the feet, it was close. And JJ, he shows a lot on the feet that's good, right? Like, I really like his striking. I like his kicks. I think his output could be better, but he counters really well. He can get a bit wild, but I do like how he mixes the kicks into the striking combinations. It's very clean, very crisp. His own wrestling is actually pretty solid. He's got a nice back take. He can get ahead of himself sometimes, lose position. Happened in the Carvalho fight. He ended the first round on his back. He's got 4 sub wins himself. And his takedown defense, you know, it's meh. That's what I have in my notes. I wrote that it's meh. Like I said, Ramadanov was getting him down. There's not much shame there. But Tokov is also a really good wrestler. And, you know, you watch JJ Wilson's fights and, like, blanking on the name, Taiwan Claxton, right, was taking him down, was pushing him against the fence. Like I mentioned, Carvalho, once he reversed position, had him stuck on bottom in the end of the first round. I feel like Tokov has that wrestling that he can use as well to, you know, either slow the pace down, because JJ Wilson brings this madman's pace, right? He brings his crazy pace and he uses it to break his opponents. I think that Tokov can slow that down, use his grappling, which is really good. His offensive wrestling is very solid. He had really good scrambles with a high-level wrestler in Gonzalez. He was having great scrambles with Skatizi and finding offensive wrestling success there. So I do think he's a better offensive wrestler here. And then I don't see JJ Wilson getting him down with his own takedowns, really. Definitely not holding him down, in my opinion. And in the striking, I think that it's Tokov who's crisper, faster. He's got a better output. I really like the way he's creating angles with his footwork. It's really crisp. And I just think he's a really good striker. So I do like Tokov to pull off the W here. The odds are super close. They reflect the matchup really well. Right now, you can get JJ Wilson anywhere from minus 105 to minus 115. And it's the same for Tokov. You can get him for anywhere from minus 105 to minus 115. So right now, I am waiting. I'm going to see if I can get plus money on Tokov. If I do, that'll be awesome. I'm going to play him regardless. But I do think he wins this fight just because I think he's got more weapons to do so. So the pick is going to be Vladimir Tokov, and we're going to move on. So this next fight I don't have much interest in, and I'll explain why. Here we've got Keoni Diggs versus Ricardo Seixas. Diggs is 9-2-0, 35 years old. He's 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. And I've got him training out of no, that's not him. I've got him training out of MMA Lab, I believe. On the other side, you've got Seixas. He's 9-3-0, 31 years old, so he's 4 years younger. 5'8", so he's 1 inch shorter. He's got a 73.5-inch reach, so that's 1.5 inches in reach advantage. And he's training out of, I've got King's MMA. So, look, Keoni Diggs, he's been kind of a disappointment. He lost me quite a bit of money. I mean, I lost myself money betting on him in his Bobby King fight. That was not a good look. He lost to Daniel Weichel before that. I don't think that's a terrible look. Daniel's a grizzled veteran in the game. But, before that, he had some good performances, but against who? Derek Campos, who was 20-10-0 at the time. Scotty Howe, who's abysmally bad. So he hasn't really shown that much. And we were all, at least I was hype about him. I know a lot of people in Bellator were. He has good striking. He's very crisp. He seems to start pretty slow, and the output is a little bit waning as well. His offensive wrestling is really solid. He's got a really nice back take. 6 submission wins, never been submitted himself. My one concern on the feet is he's a bit flat-footed. But, you look at Seixas, right? And it's just so hard to get a read on him because there's really just not much tape. There's very little tape. He's got 5 sub wins of his own, but I don't have much information on his offensive grappling. And he's very hittable. He's constantly getting hurt. Been knocked out 3 times himself. 3 KO wins, 3 KO losses. His own striking is good. I like the front kick, but I just think he's too hittable. I think it's more than likely Diggs is just going to be landing the harder shots, winning the minutes. Diggs, I also do think, is going to have the wrestling success here, if anyone will. I'm not confident either way on this fight. I don't suggest betting it. I don't suggest parlaying Diggs, and I don't think that Seixas is a good underdog play. I think the best bet for this fight is to stay off of it. My lean is Keoni Diggs, but again, with so little information on this guy Seixas, how could you be confident? You really can't. I'm going to pull him up real quick, his record in Bellator. So the Mandiau fight, right? First off, I don't even think I was able to pull that one up. I don't remember, but he got knocked out in the first round. Mandiau-Nalo's pretty good, so it's not the worst thing. He finished Dominic Clark, who is the guy fighting Gibson Jr. Yeah, I mean, this fight's just a hot dumpster fire. I would avoid it and just not play it. Save your money. I think there's better fights to target. So we're going to move on and not waste any more time on that matchup. Next up, we've got Khadzhimurat Bestaev versus Khalid Murtazaliev. Bestaev is 11-4-0. He's 34 years old, 6'6" with a 77.5-inch reach. And I've got him training out of AKA, which is really good for him because he's got terrible takedown defense. And then Khalid Murtazaliev on the other side, 15-3-0, 29 years old, 6 feet tall with a 72.5-inch reach. And I've got him training out of Krepost. So this one's interesting, right? You look at Murtazaliev, much smaller guy. And in his last fight against Anthony freaking Adams, if you don't know who Anthony Adams is, the guy lost to Impa Kasanganay in the Contender Series. He's an okay dude, kind of a journeyman. And he beat Murtazaliev, and he beat him because Murtazaliev, it wasn't so much, in my opinion, that he couldn't get Anthony Adams down. It's that he wasn't really trying to do it often enough. I feel like if he was really trying to impose that wrestling, he could have won that fight. He could have out-grappled Anthony Adams, but he just didn't. His striking, it's pretty good. I don't have much bad things to say about it. He's got a nice head kick. He's a little bit loopy, good jab, good leg kicks, good head kicks. Sorry, I'm all over the place today. It's been a long week, but low output. And he was having a hard time landing on Adams because Adams was using that reach advantage, right? He had a hard time closing the distance. And I mean, Bestaev is going to have much, much more of a reach advantage here. He's literally has, what is it? I believe it's a 6-inch reach advantage. Yeah. No, it's a 5-inch reach advantage, a 6-inch height advantage. If we're stuck on the feet and Murtazaliev decides not to wrestle again and he wants to strike, it's going to be dangerous for him. I mean, he's got 12 knockout wins. He's only been knocked out once himself. But Bestaev, he's a good kickboxer. He brings up those knees super fast. He's got a good right hand, a good jab, good 1-2, nice body kick, nice uppercut. I really like the combinations, and I like that he uses his length really well. But here's what matters. He's got 4 knockout wins, but he has 3 knockout losses. And how do they happen? He leaves up his chin with straight up tall man defense. Another person who knocked him out, Phil Hawes on the Contender Series, if you guys remember that fight. So, I think that I think Murtazaliev should win this fight. And if he wants to win it easy, he should just wrestle. Like he has the offensive wrestling to win this. Again, it looked really good against Aguiar when he was using it, solid top control. And you look at the fight for Bestaev again, his last fight against Ty Guerta, right? He was an underdog there, and Guerta was just taking him down, controlling him. He did it over and over again, and Guerta should have won that fight. He really should have. Even Bestaev, after he got the W, was like, this doesn't make sense. He does have 6 submission wins. That's interesting. 1 sub loss himself. He backs up in a straight line, not much lateral movement. Add that with the chin up in the air. You're starting to understand how he got knocked out 3 times. So, look, it's hard for me to say Murtazaliev loses this fight because I think he's got that grappling edge. And I do think when it comes to the striking, it's Murtazaliev who's going to be more defensively sound and more safe. Who's the better striker? I don't know. It's hard for me to tell, really. I guess I would say Murtazaliev, but because Bestaev has that height and reach, I think it evens out a bit. But yeah, I think Murtazaliev wins this fight. I don't think it's smart to parlay him. And I don't love the dog shot on Bestaev because of that clear grappling issue here. Could he be improving it? Yeah, he could. He's at AKA, but he's also 34. So he's not like some spring chicken who's going to be coming in with new tricks every time, There's going to be an extent to how much he can improve. So I do like Murtazaliev, but I think Bestaev is live. And I think the best move is to just stay off of that fight. And we're going to move on to the next one. Quick. Constantly turning my AC on and off because it's like right here blowing on me, but I need it because it gets too hot without it. So constant chaos. But all right. So for this next fight, we've got Richard Palencia versus CJ Hamilton. Palencia is 10-0, undefeated as a pro. He's 32 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. And I've got him training out of MMA Lab. On the other side, you've got CJ Hamilton, 15-9-0, 35 years old, so he's 3 years older. 5'6", so he's 1 inch shorter. Although that doesn't quite make sense to me, but we'll see. And he's got a 72-inch reach, so he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. And I've got Hamilton training out of Contemporary MMA. So I like the dog here, and I'm going to explain why. If you look at CJ Hamilton's 2 Bellator opponents, right? His last 2 losses. Who were they? The first one was Mamedov, who at the time had only lost to Peter Yan. I believe it was Mamedov's debut in Bellator, and he lost. He got choked out in the second round, rear naked. Is anybody surprised? No, nobody was surprised. And then his next fight against Mateus Matos. Matos had 2 losses at the time, still hasn't lost. Who were those 2 losses against? Peter Yan and Mamedov. So neither of these losses are terrible. Both these guys are tough, right? Mamedov is a very good fighter. Mateus Matos is a very solid fighter. And while CJ Hamilton did get finished in both of those fights, he got choked out by Mamedov, he got knocked out by Matos. I don't think Palencia presents those same issues. Palencia, he's coming out of LFA. His last fight was against Alan Bigoso. We just saw Bigoso fight on the Contender Series against Bashrat's younger brother. Lost that fight. Look, Palencia is a really good wrestler, but I'm not seeing much else. And half of his takedowns on Bigoso were Bigoso pulling guillotine. He doesn't set up his takedowns much. I wouldn't call him an elite wrestler. He got taken down against Sardino. I believe it was a 9-7-0 guy, something like that. I just feel like if we're stuck on the feet here, it's Hamilton all day. He's the better striker, I think, without a doubt. He's got good hands, good combos, nice head kick. I really like the jab. 4 knockout wins, 1 knockout loss himself. That was to Mateus Matos. He can leave himself open when he swings, and he'll leave his hands low sometimes. He'll also tend to be flat-footed as the fight goes on. So, look, Palencia is going to be live, but I don't think he warrants this price tag. Minus 270, I bet it's going to get wider. His striking is very basic. His output is very low. He's got a good jab, but he's not good at closing the distance. And while the numbers do say he's taller here, which I don't think is correct, he's definitely given up a reach disadvantage here, which I think that Hamilton is going to use very well. And the defensive grappling of Hamilton isn't terrible. Like I said, like there's no shame in being out wrestled by Mamedov. Almost everybody is, except fellow wrestlers. So there's no real shame there. And I also didn't know this until I was looking into it, but Hamilton apparently also has a wrestling background. So it's not like he's coming in here as a striker who's going to be easy pickings for a good wrestler. I think Hamilton's going to make this a really tough debut for Palencia. And I think he's going to be live to win the fight. I grabbed him at plus 230. I played him for a half unit. And I made a mistake because you can get him plus 270 on DraftKings and it's climbing. My guy Zachary in the chat, thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. Saying, don't like the line here, but I like Palencia to win. Seems like Hamilton's showing up for a paycheck at this point. I don't know, man. I can't say I agree because what's really suggesting that he's coming here for a paycheck? You know, he lost to 2 studs. It's not like he pulled up, lost to 2 randos, and he's coming to lose again. Like, he lost to 2 studs, and I feel like either Mamedov or Matos would beat Palencia. I don't know about easily, but I think they both clearly beat him. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't like the price tag either, but I just also think that Hamilton's live. I think he's the better striker, and I don't think that Palencia is necessarily going to out-grapple him the way we've seen him out-grappled by Mamedov, for example. So, yeah, my pick is going to be CJ Hamilton, but we're going to move on. I just realized I closed that by accident. I'm sorry. I'm pulling it back up. Now I got to reshare it with you guys. Okay, and we're back. Okay, sorry about that. Closed it by accident. But yeah, so the pick is CJ Hamilton, and we're going to move on to our next fight. This one is really interesting to me, and I originally came into it wanting to make a bet and then got off of it. So here we've got Max Rohskopf making his Bellator debut against Mike Hamel. Rohskopf is 7-1-0. He's 28 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach, and I've got him training out of Extreme Couture, which is a great camp for a guy like him, honestly. I love that. And then on the other side, you've got Mike Hamel, 9-5-0, 30 years old, 5'9", 68-inch reach. So he's 3 inches shorter. He's given up 5 inches in reach, and he does train out of MMA Lab. So I thought I was going to bet Max Rohskopf here. He's quite a bit bigger here. He's got a big size advantage. You know, we saw him in the UFC. He didn't do well against Hubbard. But look, you watch that fight, and he was doing well against Hubbard at first. He was. Once he gassed out, that's when everything changed. And he gassed out quick. It was towards the end of the first round. He was already gassed. But, you know, you listen to the guy. He was on the Dogger Pass podcast with Cody Saftik and Paul Shaughnessy not too long ago. I believe it was like 2 or 3 months ago. And he was talking about it. And he was just talking about it. He was saying, like, it wasn't it for him at that moment. And rather than just like keel over and let Hubbard knock him, like get a TKO, he was like, I'm just going to say I can't continue. Right. So, yeah, I mean, this is what I was thinking too, AY. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. I appreciate you coming on. Before you said another way to look at Hamilton is a Bellator guy and Palencia is leaving Bellator. So, no, Palencia is only coming to Bellator now. He's making his debut, I'm pretty sure. And then this is what I was thinking originally, is that Max would just out physical him, you know, push him against the fence, make him work. And I think he could do that. I do. But like Hamel's been super impressive with the counter wrestling, just in general in Bellator. He's been super impressive. Constant underdog. It all started when he fought. So he fought Adam Boric, got to a split decision. I don't know if necessarily it should have been a split, but good fight. Usman Nurmagomedov after that beat him by unanimous decision. And after that, he was an underdog to Bryce Logan. He was an underdog to Achilles Mota, and he beat both of those guys. He was able to stamp out their grappling, get rid of that advantage. And on the feet, he was winning. He's got good pressure, good striking. I like the output. I like the leg kicks. I like how he is in the pocket. And he's a really good wrestler himself. He's a 2-time Arizona state champion, wrestled in college, qualified for Division II NCAAs. Obviously, he's not in the level of Rohskopf. Rohskopf took 3rd in Ohio State, so he's not a state champ, but he's a 2-time NCAA qualifier, Division I, very legit guy. BJJ purple belt. He's got 5 submission wins. And my issue, the only reason I'm not betting Max anymore is the striking, right? Because I think Mike Hamel has really good takedown defense, I have to worry about what's going to happen on the feet. And on the feet, even to this point, Max doesn't look good. He's had 2 fights since the UFC against guys who are not great, and his striking is just not it. It's not it. He leans his head forward, wings his strikes, and just tries to close the distance. And like that's not going to work at a high level. It's just not. Like you can keep pushing for those takedowns, but if you're not going to get them and the guy pushes you off of him and you start swinging like this, you're going to get knocked out. So I low-key think Hamel's going to beat him over 3 rounds, tire him out, exhaust him, just break him. Unfortunately, because I really like Max and I really wanted to back him here. But after doing the tape, I don't really see a way to do it. I think he low-key might be able to get a submission. You look at the records, Hamel has 1 sub loss. But like I said, he's hard to grapple. He's a good defensive wrestler and a good offensive wrestler. And he's a better striker here for sure. So my lean is going to be Hamel. Not going to bet it because I do think Rohskopf, if he comes in here a little bit crisper on the feet, he is very young, very constantly improving. Extreme Couture is a great camp for that. If he starts getting tighter with his striking, it's not swinging as much. Yeah, he should win this. He's bigger, stronger. I think he's going to be the better offensive wrestler. So, yeah, I'm going to lean Hamel. I think this is a really close fight. I'm not going to bet it either way, and we're going to move on to the next one. All right. So, for this matchup, we've got Islam Mamedov versus Nick Browne. Mamedov is 21, 2-1, 33 years old. He's 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. And his opponent, and he's training out of AKA. He trains with Habib and whatnot. On the other side, Browne, he's 13, 1-0, 32 years old, 5'11" as well, 72.5-inch reach. And I've got him training out of Uniontown Fight Club. So, first off, I just want to say Islam Mamedov beat Benson Henderson. And I can never, I'll never forgive Hendo for what he did. Like, not because I'm mad that he did it, just because it was like so cringe and like, what are you doing? So he fights Islam Mamedov, fight's done, close fight, not really clear who won. I thought Mamedov won, but whatever. Could have been either way, I guess. And this guy just pulls his entire family into the octagon, picks up his daughter, puts her on his shoulder, starts running around the octagon with his daughter. The decision hasn't been read yet, and he's acting like he just won a world title. Bro, if you're a judge and you're seeing this shit, like, you're seeing this child up there, like, smiling with her daddy, like, are you really not going to just give him the dub if you think it was close? Like, I think it was such bullshit from top to bottom. But regardless, back to this fight. I think Mamedov wins this fight. We're looking at 2 guys who primarily grapple. Nick Browne, that's been his strength. He's a decent striker, but he's pretty sloppy, and he uses it only really to close that distance. When he's at range, he's getting hit quite a bit. I like his wrestling a lot, but I just don't think it's going to help him much here. Like, obviously, like, look who he's fighting. Islam Mamedov matches the name, grapples like the name suggests, strong top control, really good transitions, 10 submission wins, good forward pressure. And look, even if he did lose to Henderson, Henderson is a legitimate guy. He's old, but he's still no joke. We saw that in his last fight. I just feel like even though I really like Browne, and I think Browne is going to be live in a lot of his fights, I believe I backed him against Mandiau as an underdog, which was awesome. I just don't think this is the spot. I think Mamedov has him covered. And like, all right, so Nick Browne likes to wrestle, right? He can't take Mamedov down. Now he has to strike with him. He's not a good striker. Mamedov's a better striker. So I have to go with Islam Mamedov here. I didn't go heavy. I ended up parlaying him. What I did was I did a half unit parlay with him, Pico, McKee at plus 102. And then I did another half unit parlay with him and a guy who picked up a dub today, Saigid Isakhmaev, another Habib guy, actually. He fought today at 1FC this morning and got us that W. So total stake, 1 unit parlayed. That's all I'm doing. I think that Mamedov, by decision, is probably the most likely outcome. But, like, I don't want to bet it. Maybe he gets a sub. I don't know. I'm not going to touch it. You can sit and wait. It's looking like the money's coming in on Browne now. You can get Mamedov minus 225-ish. Yeah, I mean, it's playable in my opinion. I just think he has Nick Browne covered everywhere. My guy Dan Goldstein in the chat, thank you for tuning in, man. After making that fight close, I heard Islam's dad wanted him to change his name from Islam to Catholic. I too think Islam won that, though. Yeah, I mean, it's not even fully his fault. Like, if you guys haven't seen what I'm talking about, please go pull up the Mamedov Hendo fight and just go straight to the end for when the fight ends and just watch what Henderson does. Like, and then tell me another time that's ever happened, ever. It was just crazy and super cringe and just whack. But yeah, I'll never let that go. But we'll move on. Mamedov, I think, has Nick Browne covered everywhere. He should win that fight. And we're going to move on to a really, really dope matchup. So here we've got Juan Archuleta versus Enrique Barzola. Archuleta's 25, 4-0. He's 35 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. And I've got him training out of Huntington Beach Ultimate Training Center. On the other side, you've got Enrique Barzola, 18, 6-2, 33 years old, 5'7" as well, 70-inch reach. So he's got a 1-inch reach advantage. And he does still train out of AKA. So I want to pull up Enrique Barzola's record right now on Tapology because this dude came into Bellator a different beast. I mean, he was already decent in the UFC. Like, he had some close fights, some good performances, but he was not this good, in my opinion. Like, he came in here, fought Darrion Caldwell for his debut. I backed Caldwell. I do think Caldwell was winning that fight, but he broke him, tired him out, and finished him in the third round. The Nikita Mikhailov fight, I backed Mikhailov. I thought for sure, he'd be able to outgrind Barzola. Nope. Magomedov. I backed Magomedov, and going into the fourth round, I was getting ready to toss that ticket because I thought Barzola was winning that fight. Barzola's brought two things into Bellator that has helped him find tremendous success. His takedown defense is the first thing, right? He was already showing that in the UFC against guys like Ilya Topuria, right? Movsar Evloev. Mix them up all the time. Evloev is an elite wrestler, and Barzola made him work. Ronnie Yaya, elite grappler. They went to a draw. And then he comes in here, and I mean, Darrion Caldwell was struggling as the fight progressed. Nikita Mikhailov was struggling. And then Magomedov was really struggling to take him down. I'm pretty sure Barzola got his own takedown in that fight. And yeah, he's just been super impressive. He comes in here with that pressure, cuts the cage, nonstop output, just striking. He'll go to the body, he'll go to the head. He does whatever he's got to do. I mean, he's a dog's dog. I mean, the guy's an absolute dog. He's got that dog in him. I love what he brings to the table. And I did go into this fight expecting to back him. Now, real quick, my guy Dan saying, dude was giving Magomed all he could handle until the end. Barzola took a whole Mago off Magomed's name, even in a loss. Yeah, Barzola looks fantastic there. And I thought I was losing that bet. So, you have to think about it now. Every time he goes into these fights, like, he's already fought good grapplers. So, like, you can't really say, oh, he's fighting a grappler, he's going to get wrestle fucked. He's done it time and time again. He's done okay. More than okay. He's done great. So, then you look at it and you're like, all right, Juan Archuleta. Are you going to be able to out-grapple Barzola? Yeah, I think he's going to out-grapple him, but not much, right? Barzola, anytime he's going to get taken down, he's going to pop right back up. I don't think that Archuleta is going to find extended grappling success, but I think that it's going to be vital to mix in those takedowns so he can hang on the feet. Archuleta's a pretty good striker, too. He's got 11 knockouts himself, whereas Barzola's only got 5. 1 KO loss for Archuleta. Barzola's never been knocked out. Both guys have been submitted once. And look, it was hard for me to really get a read on Archuleta striking compared to Barzola, but I think he's just as good. He's got a solid 1-2. He can get a little bit loopy, but it's pretty good. Combos are solid. He looks great in the pocket. He looked very crisp in his last fight. That's another spot where I bet his opponent. I bet Stotts, and I was sure that I was losing that bet. I really was. Archuleta looked like he was the better man there. And eventually Stotts, I believe it was a head kick knockout that got him. Like, I felt that Archuleta was winning that fight. So I think he can win this one too. Like I mentioned, I think the striking is pretty even here. I think the output goes to Barzola. The pressure goes to Barzola. But Archuleta has that grappling edge. Even though Barzola has really good defensive wrestling, he's still getting taken down, right? Darrion Caldwell still took him down. He still controlled him. So it's not like he's invincible to grappling all of a sudden. He's an animal. He's making it hard, but he's not invincible. So I think that Archuleta can mix in that grappling, mix it in with the striking, and pull away that W, probably by decision. But because of the way both of these guys fight, I don't want to I don't want to take that risk. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to play Juan Archuleta. It's looking like we already have plus money. You can get him for plus 110 right now on Bet Online and on DraftKings. I see a little bit of pushback starting to come his way, so maybe it's time to get in there. I'm going to play him for a unit. I'm going to play him at whatever it is, plus 110. If I can get better, I'll play it better. I'll post it on my Twitter, Couch Warrior Pod, as soon as I do it. I just feel like Juan Archuleta should be able to pull this off in a decision win. I think it's going to be super close, though. Don't risk more than a unit, depending on no matter what side you're on. Sorry, guys. I'm stuttering. I'm tired. My guy Papa Chuck in the chat. Thank you for tuning in, man. What's your best 4-leg Bellator UFC value parlay? So what do you mean by value? Do you mean like you want me to put 4 underdogs together, or 4 bets I think have value? Or are you looking for 4 chalky guys to make it have some value? I guess if I had to do a cross promotion parlay, I feel like it's not that hard to pick, right? I mean, from Bellator, I would go with Mamedov and McKee, I guess. I mean, you can throw Pico in there instead of either of those guys, but Pico's like minus 600. So I would go with Mamedov and McKee from Bellator. And then for UFC, I guess I would throw in Randy Browne and I'd throw in Ronnie Barcelos. And now I'm like curious what that parlay comes out to. I might play that myself. Let's check it out. Let's pull out a parlay calculator. See what our parlay comes out to. So 4 legs, 1 unit. Let's see. Minus 230 for Barcelos, minus 320 for Randy Browne, and then AJ McKee minus 435, and then Islam Mamedov minus 225, and that pays out. So that's about a plus 230 parlay. Yeah, I don't hate it. Plus, Papa Chuck saying plus 196 wherever he's betting. Plus 230 is what I got from DraftKings. So yeah, I'm probably gonna play that parlay. That's a good one, but I'm hesitant to parlay chalk these days after what happened with Albrechtsen. Like Bellator and LFA are my 2 worst regional promotions. Like I'm working on it still. I do really great in PFL. UFC, I do pretty good, but Bellator and LFA are my works in progress, particularly because of those chalk parlays. So I'm trying to move away from them. But yeah, I think that's a solid parlay over there. But yeah, for this fight, I like Juan Archuleta by a small margin. It's such a good fight, such a close fight, and I can't blame you going either way. But with dog money on Juan Archuleta, that's what I'm going to go with. And we're going to move on to the next fight. All right, so I'll try to pick up the pace for these next 2 fights because it's heavy favorites. So not much to talk about, but we've got Aaron Pico versus Jeremy Kennedy. Pico's 10-3-0, 26 years old. He's 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach, and I do have him training out of Jackson Wink MMA. On the other side, you've got Jeremy Kennedy. He's 17-3-0, 30 years old, so he's 4 years older. He's 5'11", so he's 3 inches taller, and he's got a 71-inch reach, and I've got him training out of Extreme Couture and Cobrina BJJ. So this one's really interesting because I like Jeremy Kennedy. I do like Jeremy Kennedy a lot. Not in this fight. Let me preface that. Not in this fight. In general, I like Jeremy Kennedy. I've backed him before. I backed him in his last fight when we pulled that dub against Emmanuel Sanchez. I believe he was an underdog, plus 160. Yep. So I'm a Jeremy Kennedy fan, believe it or not. I'm sure there's not many of us, but he's a pretty good striker. He's got a good jab, but he doesn't do much more than that. So I guess I can't call him a good striker. The output's pretty low. He does have 6 knockout wins, 2 KO losses himself, though. His own offensive wrestling is very solid, but I just don't think it's going to matter here, obviously, because Pico is a very high-level wrestler, like very, very high-level wrestler. And another thing with Kennedy, when he fought Boric was able to reverse him against the fence. Like, Pico can do that shit all day. Pico's going to take you down. Pico's going to control him, I believe. So, Yeah, I like Kennedy a lot. I just think he's outmatched here. What does he have over Pico? He doesn't have the striking. I think Pico's the better striker. He doesn't have the power. I think Pico has the better power. He's not faster. I think Pico's faster. He's certainly not the better offensive grappler. And I imagine that the defensive grappling probably goes to Pico as well. So yeah, I mean, I like Pico here. I think he probably knocks out Jeremy Kennedy. He looked phenomenal in his last fight. I know the guy was coming in on short notice. It was a guy who, blanking on his name, he was actually pretty good on the regionals, but he was clearly outmatched against Pico. And Pico was just dominating him. Body shots, those body shots were so nice. They were such clean shots. He looked fantastic. I think Pico probably runs through Jeremy Kennedy. Look, Pico has had his off days in Bellator, right? He's got 2 knockout losses. Those are his only 2 Bellator losses, I believe. No, so his debut in 2017 was the first loss. But since then, in 2019, he lost twice. Henry Corrales knocked him out in round 1. Boric knocked him out in round 2. I don't think Kennedy's going to knock out Pico. I really don't. And I don't think he can grind out a decision. I don't. Because like I said, if someone's going to grapple here, it's going to be Pico. I don't see Pico getting exhausted from anything Kennedy's going to do. So I've got him parlayed up, like I mentioned, with McKee and Mamedov. And then I've also got him parlayed up with McKee and that guy I told you guys about, Saigid, fought in ONE FC earlier this morning. So yeah, the pick is Pico, and we're going to move on. We got 2 fights left. I got to pick it up a little bit. My dad is going to kill me. He's the one who came to my door. We were supposed to go somewhere, but he came a little early. But I got to pick up the pace now. He's going to kill me. Damon Archery saying, guys, who are your top 3 locks? Brother, I will never call anything a lock in MMA. Because I believe in jinx, and I firmly believe that if I say something's a lock, they're going to lose. And B, Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman with like 1 minute left. So there's no locks. Locks don't exist. But if I had to tell you who I'm most confident in on this card, like I mentioned, it would be Aaron Pico, AJ McKee, and Islam Mamedov are my most confident picks on this card. But there's no locks in the MMA, brother. Always be careful with that. So for this next fight, we've got AJ McKee Jr. versus Spike Carlisle. McKee's 18-1-0. He's 27 years old, 5'10" with the 73.5-inch reach, and he trains under his father. Carlisle on the other side, he's 14-3-0, 29 years old, so he's 2 years older, 5'8", so he's 2 inches shorter, and he has a 71.5-inch reach, so he's given up 2 inches in reach. And I don't have a camp for Carlisle, so we're going to go with the training lab that he's got over there on Tapology. Look, so first of all, this is such a weird matchup. Like, such a weird matchup. Because AJ McKee just had a close fight with Pitbull, right? Their second fight, he had a close fight. Many felt he won. I didn't think he won. I had a bet on him. I thought he lost. But I did think that they'd run it back, right? It would be Pitbull, McKee 3. Instead, they give Pitbull Boric, and McKee goes up to lightweight, not to fight a ranked contender, but to fight Spike Carlisle. Weird. Super weird. And the thing with Spike is, you guys probably recognize him from the UFC. He fought there, I believe, for 4 fights. Always super exciting. Always brings madness. Always brings craziness. Brings the pressure. The thing is, he's losing every single fight until he wins it. Literally. Like, especially the last 2, right? Since he's come to Bellator, he fought, blanking on the name. He fought Dan Murray. He was losing that fight until he got a rear naked choke in the 3rd round. Then in Risen, he was fighting Koji Takeda. He was losing that fight as well until he got a guillotine choke in the 2nd round. Do I think he's going to get a late finish? And, you know, he's usually getting submissions. Do I think he's going to sub AJ McKee? No. Do I think he's going to late finish McKee? Nah, I don't. I think McKee's going to win this fight. I think he can probably finish Carlisle probably by submission. McKee's got really good wrestling. His offensive scrambling is even better. I don't see Spike taking down McKee unless McKee pulls guard, which I guess is a possibility, but like, he's going to do it for a reason. You know, he's got, like I mentioned, 7 submission wins, super good on the ground. And his striking's pretty good too. I like his body kick. I really like the 1-2, the way he extends his body. It's very Jamal Hill-like, where he makes himself even longer than he is. Like the way he extends. And it almost looks like it's dangerous to do it that way, but they look so clean when they do it, and it really works well. Solid combos. He uses knees and his elbows really nicely, and he's great in the clinch. My guy Damon, now he's asking which 2 UFC guys am I most confident for this week? Let me pull it up. Okay. I'm most confident in Alexei Oleinik. No, I'm playing. I'm most confident in, I guess, let's go with Randy Browne again against old man Trinaldo. And I really like Maxim Grishin, honestly. Him or Barcelos would probably be my second most confident pick. And then Papa Chuck, that's awesome. That's so dope. I was watching with my girlfriend's family, and I was literally explaining to them why I bet Leon Edwards decision, no action. So like we had like 1 minute left till decision. So I was like explaining my bet to them, and then boom, the knockout happens. It was the craziest shit, man. But yeah, let's move on. I do think that McKee should win this fight. Carlisle, he's a decent striker, but he gets very sloppy. He can put together decent combinations, but his whole thing is create chaos, thrive in that chaos. McKee can also do that, though. McKee also can thrive in chaos. He's shown that before. That's how he submitted Pitbull the first time. So this is going to be madness for as long as it lasts, but I do like AJ McKee. It's super, super wide, the line, but it makes sense to me. I parlayed him with Pico and let me pull it up for you guys. Pico and Saigid, like I mentioned before, and him, Pico, and Mamedov. So, yeah, I like McKee to win this fight, and we're going to move on to the main event, the last fight. And this one's also super interesting to me, especially the line movement. So for this one, we got Patricio Pitbull versus Adam Boric. Pitbull's 33, 5-0, 35 years old. He's 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach, and he trains out of his own camp. Boric on the other side is 18, 1-0. He's 29 years old, so he's 6 years younger. 5'11", so he's 5 inches taller. And he's got a 70.5-inch reach, so he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. And I've got him training out of Sanford MMA, my personal favorite camp. My guy Damon saying, would you say Inaba's in a squash match? No, if you actually watch back to when I broke down that fight in this video, I'm actually betting her opponent for a sprinkle. Make sure to check out why. But yeah, back to this one. This one's super interesting, right? First off, it just came out that Pitbull is going down to bantamweight after this, which I think is what he should have done in the first place. He's undersized here, and he's been able to still keep picking up W's because of his ridiculous power, and he's got really good BJJ, particularly the guillotine, right? That's what he's catching guys in constantly. So this one was really tough for me because I'm looking at it, and I'm like, can Boric really hang on the feet for 5 rounds with Pitbull and not get hurt? Like, if there's no finish, we go to a decision. Yeah, I think Boric probably gets this done. He's got the better output. He's much, much bigger, much younger. He's got really good striking. He's good at keeping his distance. Good jab. Good 1-2. Good in the pocket. Very crisp. But I did notice that he's pretty hittable. And I don't know how he's going to take those shots from Pitbull. When Pitbull lands, people go down. I don't normally like betting on guys who require a knockout to win the fight. But first of all, he doesn't necessarily need a knockout, right? He beat AJ McKee in the 5-round decision. Some didn't think he won, whatever. I just think that if you're telling me we're going to be on the feet probably for 5 rounds, I way rather just bet Pitbull inside the distance and pick a side and bet Boric money line and hope he upsets Pitbull. Like, Pitbull has shown time and time again, even though he's small and doesn't look right for the weight class, he's elite. He's an elite fighter. He's a really good fighter. My biggest issue with him is just his low output. But when he's putting it together, he's putting it together, knocking guys out, getting them out of there. So the way I decided to tackle this one was I played Pitbull inside the distance. I got that at, let's see. I got that at plus 210. I played it for a half unit. I didn't want to pick KO or submission because I think either one can happen in the chaos of the fight. I think a KO is a bit more likely because, like I mentioned, I do think Boric can be hittable sometimes. But it's going to be an awesome fight. I'm very hyped to see what happens. I'm glad I'm not playing too much on it, just a half unit. And yeah, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the chat for talking to me. I love going back and forth with you guys. It's my favorite part of the show. We went for an hour almost, which is way longer than I would have liked. But what can you do? Sometimes you got to really just talk about those fights. So real quick, I'll run through my picks, and then we'll get out of here. So for Bellator 286, I've got CJ Hamilton plus 230 for a half unit. If you like what I'm saying there, wait, you're going to get a better price. I got Pitbull inside the distance plus 210 for a half unit. I've got Gibson Jr. by knockout plus 165 for a half unit. I've got Almeida by knockout plus 130 for a half unit. I've got a parlay with McKee, Pico, Mamedov plus 102 for a half unit. Got another parlay with McKee, Pico, and that guy Saigid I told you guys about for a unit. And I'm going to be playing one unit on Juan Archuleta, and I'll be playing one unit on Tokov as well. And that's it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Good luck this weekend. We got so much stuff going on, a ton of fights. Make sure you're following me at Couch Warrior Pod so you can see all my bets as I make them. And yeah, have a good one, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace out.